I'm Matt Downing, and welcome to Diving Deep EDU.
Curious conversations with all types of peeps. Encouraging innovation, we are diving deep. Certainly education is what we like to speak. Fervent with dedication, now it is time to teach. Yeah.
Welcome to Diving Deep EDU. We're back at it with a focus for the next chunk of episodes. We're going to be talking about change, right? But not just change in the general sense, but bringing about change within an educational setting, within a school. And we're going to be doing that through the lens of organizational behavior and different books about philosophies of change. Now, many of the books and papers and ideas were not written directly towards the educational context. So we're going to be spending some time thinking about how to apply the learned concepts about change to K-12 education, right? We're going to be reflecting, considering, seeking to apply. And if you have questions or comments, send me an email. We're going to be featuring some of those questions in the future. The first one will be today, and my email is in the show notes. And while you're at it, go ahead, leave a review, and share this episode out. Let's get rolling. So the fourth foundational element when we're bringing about change is utilizing change protocols, and that's going to be the focus of our episode today. So we've talked about three other foundational elements already. We've talked about, number one, the necessity of the why, right? Number two, the idea that management is not leadership, and number three, sacrifice is necessary when trying to bring about change. And these are all foundational, and these are essential elements when trying to bring about change. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The fourth foundational element is change protocols. But before we get any further, right, let's get distracted a little bit with a question. Remember, you can send questions to the email listed in the show notes. All right, so here's a good question that we're going to consider today, and it comes from, I believe, previous episode. All right, so here's the question. In the previous episode, you mentioned that you have to disconnect change from loss so that they can walk through the change. But what if there's still a loss after helping them through it? Your examples were more of helping them realize the loss wasn't going to be impacted by change. Oh man, what a great question. What a great, thoughtful, reflective question. And this question's on point. And it's right, you know? So let's think about this for a little bit. I believe this question's referring to the article we've referenced in the previous episode, A Survival Guide for Leaders. And it's a great article. I really like the article. It's helped me out a lot. So the article makes the claim that people aren't steering clear of loss, right? People aren't steering clear of change, right? They're steering clear of loss, okay? So what you want to do is you want to disconnect the change from the loss so that they can walk through the change and they're not just hesitating from the associated loss. Does that make sense? And we talked about that. But what if, right, the loss will still be there? So some of the examples I shared were more like, are you going to disconnect the change from the loss? Then they're going to walk through the change, and the loss really won't be a loss anymore, you know, in the perfect world. And it was kind of like that. So it was like, all right, we're going to bring about a schedule change. Teachers are very hesitant to schedule changes, aren't they? So we're going to bring about a schedule change. But the schedule change is here. Now let's talk about the potential loss. Okay, you might change your lunch times and so forth. All right, so let's list all the lunch times and who's going to be in lunch times, and then they can see, oh, this isn't really a loss anymore, right? This is just a change. So then they're okay going through the change. That makes sense? But what if, okay, we need to do an additional tutor group, an MTSS group. It's an additional class that everyone needs to teach, right? That's a change, end, that's a loss. That's a sacrifice. Okay, there's no manipulating around that. Okay, the teachers are going to have an extra prep. They're going to have more kids that they have to teach, but this is a necessity because the test scores are low, right? You go through the why and you go through, leading the people, but this is a loss, right? This is more time. This is hard work. So it gets back to the point you do need to disconnect them, but when you walk through the change, sometimes that loss is still going to be there, and that's okay. And that's what the point of the last episode was. Sacrifice is necessary, when trying to bring about change. It's necessary, and we can't just soft foot that, okay? We have to walk into that. We have to lead into that. Disconnect the loss from the change. Okay, this is what we're trying to change. This is the loss, right? And if the loss is still a loss, you have to lead and walk them through that and walk them through the why, walk them through the reason, lead the people through. Don't try to manipulate. Like, it's not really that bad, it's only going to be a couple minutes. It's just this and that. You can do it, do it for the kids, blah, 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 blah. That will only last so long. You got to be honest. You have to be honest, especially when there's a clear loss associated. You have to be honest with it. After you disconnect it, if there's still a loss associated with the change, you need to walk them through that and show them that sacrifice is necessary at times when we're trying to bring about change. That's why later on in this series, we're going to be talking about the need for a vision, right? The need for urgency. These are all essential because if we don't have urgency, if we don't have a vision, right, why do they want to walk through this loss? They don't. But if you can cast a vision, if you can cast urgency, if you can get to the why, right, they will walk through the change and they'll walk through the loss because sacrifice is necessary when trying to bring about change. I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave a little bit of context, but what was really helpful was the question. So thank you for sending that. And please keep sending questions. I'll feature, at least one per episode, and we'll keep going with that. All right. So let's focus on today's episode. Today's episode is focusing on the need for a protocol when bringing about change. All right, I'm not suggesting that you write your own protocol. You could do this, but you probably shouldn't, and it'll probably be too big of a roadblock right now. But I am suggesting that you need to follow a protocol to bring about change. I'm not suggesting that you need to follow the protocol exactly as described. All right, this is a detailed prescription. I need to do step 1, 2, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, through all of these things. This is not what I'm suggesting. I am suggesting that we follow a protocol. I am suggesting that the protocol is your roadmap, is your guide to success, your guide to change. But you don't have to write this protocol. It does not have to be the perfect protocol. It does not have to be complicated and complex, and you have to follow every step by step to make it happen. A protocol is your roadmap, right? And you need to follow that in order to be successful. All right, so think of it this way, right? Your protocol is your guide map. Your guide map keeps you from getting lost. Right? Have you ever been lost before, especially before the days of GPS on your phone? Have you ever been lost? Or maybe your phone ran out of battery and you're lost, right? You're turned around. You're going in circles, time after time after time. A lot of wasted energy. And that's what a protocol helps against. It keeps you from going around in circles. It keeps you from wasting energy. All right, let me give you an example. A bunch of years ago, my wife and I, we were in Singapore, and we got lost, right? We got turned around big time. Our phones, I think, were dead. The subways closed. Sadly, we didn't have enough money for a taxi, but we got turned around big time, man. And we were walking in circles for at least 6 hours. Right? Not just a circle, but circling, We lost our way. And so we didn't make it back in a timely fashion. We wasted a lot of time. We wasted a lot of energy. If we would have had a map, if we would have followed the map, we would have got back much quicker. We would have got back a lot easier. We would have saved a lot of energy. But we didn't. We got lost. We didn't follow the guide map. And it was okay. Like, we were joking around. It's a memory. Obviously I'm talking about now. It's still a memory we think about. But imagine this. We got lost for 6 hours and there were 25 people following us. That would not have gone well. They would not have been laughing because I'm supposed to be leading. I'm supposed to be guiding. And I'm causing confusion, right? With this constant going in circles, this constant wasting energy. And that's not what we want. So a protocol helps bring about a guide so that you can lead others through change with clarity, so that you're not wasting energy, so that they are not wasting energy, and so that you can keep momentum going. Because as you know, right, change is not an easy thing to do. Change is not an easy thing to lead. So as you're leading, as you're guiding, we need to be guided by change protocols. All right, so quickly, I'm going to highlight some change protocols. I'm going to go through them, and then we're going to talk about them quickly, and then how do we apply this. So the first change protocol, I've become very interested in this, and this is what we're going to focus a lot of the future episodes on. It's John Kotter's 8-step change protocol, and it's highlighted in the book Leading Change. I would highly, highly, highly recommend this book. It's wonderful. All right, so the 8 steps. Go look at these, but quickly. They're urgency, guiding coalition, vision, enlist, remove barriers, short-term wins, sustain, and anchor. Right? And this is a very clear change protocol, step by step. But at the same time, it's not rigid and it's not prescriptive. Okay? There's a couple other ones. Lewin's 3-step. It's a lot simpler. It's just unfreeze, change, refreeze. Right? It's about stabilizing behavior. We have the PDSA model. Right? Set an aim. Choose measures, select changes, test with rapid cycles. I really like that iteration piece of that model. We have the DMAIC change model. Define, measure, analyze, improve, control. The improve is kind of that iterate from the previous model, right? We have some education-specific protocols. The Carnegie Improvement Science method is very helpful. I've been researching that and studying that, and there's really 6 core principles there. Michael Fullin's change playbook, very, very effective. Okay, so those are just some examples. I don't really want to get into the weeds right now. We're going to be doing that in the future. We're going to be looking at it step by step in a change protocol, but you need a change protocol. Here's a couple words of warning. Don't do what I'm inclined to do, and that's get a list of all the change protocols, and I'm going to research all of those in full, right? In detail. I'm going to find out all the successful businesses that brought about change. I'm going to find out which change protocol they used. And then I'm going to find out, did they use it with fidelity? Did they change it? Because I want to follow that exactly. And you know what that's going to do? That's just going to keep you from selecting a change protocol. Right? Don't put up barriers. This is just a guide. This is just a vision, a guide map to help you bring about change. So select one that you think would be helpful and use it. You can change it. You can change it as you go on. That's fine. But the clear thing is you want to lead with clarity. You want to lead guiding people on a map, through a map, effectively, not in circles. Not in circles. And a protocol helps against that. So we would all agree, right? Some quick evidence. We would all agree that this is helpful, right? Hopefully you're nodding your head like, yeah. Why don't we do it then? If we're all going to nod their heads that, yeah, this is good. All right, the last change you brought about, what protocol did you use? you know? So think about that. All right, so here's some quick evidence to hopefully solidify that, yes, change protocols are important. So Proce's multi-year research finds initiatives with effective change management, right, protocols, meet or exceed objectives 93% of the time. All right, so you get a protocol, you follow it, you're going to meet or exceed objectives 93% of the time. Harvard Business Review had a really interesting article, right, that got into protocols are measurable and improve success. These are not subjective measures. These are measurable, and they're known to improve success. You know, some people are against change protocols or protocols in general. You know, so let's consider those for a moment. Elon Musk had this to say. At a lot of big companies, process becomes a substitute for thinking. You're encouraged to behave like a little gear in a complex machine. Yes, that's true. You know, but that's not what we want protocols to become. We do not want protocols to become another bureaucratic layer, right? Instead, it's a roadmap. It's guidance. It's not bureaucracy, okay? We want autonomy in workers, right? That's a very important for motivation. Autonomy and motivation are deeply connected. So we don't want to get rid of that. This protocol's to help lead through the upcoming change. You know, Reed Hastings had this to say in his book, No Rules, Rules. I'm just going to sort of paraphrase and summarize from the book, you know, because he aims to minimize rules to avoid process creep and stifle creativity, right? He keeps saying you can't dummy-proof an organization. You need good people and trust them to do important work. And yes, he's right. And some of these change protocols could try to dummy-proof a change. And we don't want to do that. We want to trust good people. But we all have to acknowledge that change is very complex. It's very difficult. And so if you don't have a roadmap, if you don't have guidance to go through it, the change is not going to happen. All right, so how do we apply this, right? How do we apply this? Well, first, I want you to think about a change that's coming up, a change that you want to bring about. What's your plan? Like, how are you going to do that? Not step by step by step, but like your overall guidance, your overall roadmap. Like, how are you going to make that happen? Do you have a protocol? Before you bring about that change, I want you to think about a protocol. I want you to research some of the ones that I, mentioned earlier. I want you to pick one. And I want you to use that protocol as a guide map, as a helpful tool to walk you through the change that you want to bring about in your school. And then do that change. And then if you want to tweak the protocol, tweak it, right? But don't spend too much time, researching and all of this. I listed a bunch earlier. Pick one of those and use that to guide you through the change. Use the protocol, right? Lean on it to guide you so that you can lead effectively. All right, let's end with that thought as we consider change protocols when bringing about change. Thank you so much for tuning in to Diving Deep EDU. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have questions, send an email, subscribe, share, and leave a review. Until next time.
Wow, it's time to reflect. That's astounding. You've been checking out the podcast from Matthew Downing. Hope you like diving deep like a scuba diver. And the show provoked hope. That's our true desire.